guys, welcome back to another edition. If you're coming here for the first time to my channel for the first time, subscribe and turn on your notification. And if you've done that, sit back and relax. Let's rock and roll. So today we're going to be talking about symptoms of a dairy fuel fever. So before we go into the, I want to give you some literature about some kind of fuel fever which we have, so you know exactly what to expect depending on your car make and model. Let's say you're driving Asian car. Most Asian cars that I've seen have in-tank fuel filter, and this very in-tank fuel filter is often attached here right inside the fuel pump assembly. So now this is not the same case with most European model, and that is why this very topic here I'm going to be going almost like 8 symptoms. This is a typical Volkswagen, VW, or Audi fuel filter, and there is something different about this very fuel filter. You can see right there, it's rated 6 bars. You have a pressure regulator right inside this very middle part here. So this is where it gets a little bit weird for most bad fuel filters, because if I go outside the context of not disclosing exactly the problem which you could be dealing with here, because here we're going to be dealing with here a single assembly and not two assembly. So whatever symptoms this guy put up here is something which the driver needs to be aware of. So with that said, the first symptoms of a clogged fuel filter is a poor throttle response. The poor throttle response will be stemming from a bad fuel filter, in a sense that you have a clogged up fuel filter that is not allowing the right quantity of fuel to be delivered into the combustion chamber, and so this starves the system of the necessary fuel you need in order to create the air-fuel ratio correctly, and this results into a poor throttle response where you'll be having a sinking gas pedal when you step on it. Although there are other components inside the car that can actually fail and cause a poor throttle response, so be sure to look up my channel for some other video details and tutorials. The second symptoms of a clogged fuel filter is P0300. P0300 is a code that is actually allotted to multiple cylinder misfire. Multiple cylinder misfire can stem from different kinds of components in your car, and a bad fuel pump, a clogged fuel filter can also create a multiple cylinder misfire, in the sense that when it starves the overall cylinders of the right fuel quantity that it needed to function correctly, the car runs more on air than fuel, which actually disrupts the combustion process, thereby creating a cylinder misfire. So when you have a multiple cylinder misfire problem, be sure to check out your inline fuel filter. It could be the culprit that is creating the mess, and especially with those that have embedded pressure regulator inside them, like this very one here. And as soon as you replace that, you're on your way getting your car back on the road running smoothly. Number 3 symptoms of a clogged fuel filter is engine underperformance or reduced engine power. For your engine to run correctly, there are certain criteria that must be met, and some of these conditions include the right fuel quantity, the right air quantity, the power, the compression strokes, and sparks. And so if there is a clogged air filter on board, clogged fuel filter on board is going to starve the engine the right fuel needs, and this actually makes the engine power to reduce drastically, because the engine will not be needing just air to work or to function correctly. So the right air fuel quantity, air fuel ratio, is 14.7 part of air to 1 part of fuel. So when you have a clogged fuel filter on board, it reduces that 1 part of fuel maybe into like 0.1 or 0.2 part, and mixing with 14.7 part of air is not going to create the right combustion, and this will force your car to reduce the engine power, and you have engine underperformance. Number 4 symptoms of a clogged fuel filter is a link code. A link code is as a result of a restricted fuel due to a clogged fuel filter, and when this link code, the fuel filter itself have no capability of creating a link code, but it created a condition, a chain reaction that sparked the link code. When the system have no sufficient fuel that is missing with the 14.7 part of air, it run more on air than fuel, and this often get picked up by the O2 sensors and reports, and you will have a link code right there. So each time you have a link code, you could be having, most oftentimes, a fuel delivery problem where there is insufficient fuel going inside your engine, and there's a whole lot of other factors that can actually cause this: a bad fuel pump, a bad fuel pressure regulator. And I did mention that there is an embedded fuel pressure regulator in this very fuel filter right here, which is very much more common with most European car models. So be sure to check this guy out, replace it, or check the sanity if it has been like 60,000 miles and you have not serviced it before, or replace it for less like 30,000 miles. In 30,000 miles, I'm certain that you might have filled up your gas tank like more than 20 times. So there are a lot of dirt that comes with those gasoline, which this guy helps to filter off in order not to clog or to clog up your injectors. So when it does that, it takes the fall so that your engine could work very smoothly. Number 5, symptoms of a clogged fuel filter is a check engine light. A check engine light cannot emit directly from a clogged air filter, but it created a chain reaction that prompted the check engine light. When it starved the engine of the right fuel quantity that it needed to function correctly and smoothly and deliver the right power, it makes the engine to run more on air, which created a lane code, and this lane code is picked up by the oxygen sensor. Once it's picked up by the oxygen sensor, it's eliminated as a check engine light in your dashboard. Number 6, symptoms of a clogged fuel filter is a rough idle. Rough idle can stem from different kinds of defective component or system inside your car. So when you have a rough idle, there are a host of different kinds of factors that can actually cause a rough idle, and starving the engine of the fuel, which is actually uses as the main power to propel your internal combustion engine, is definitely gonna make your car RPMs needed to start going up and down, which you describe as a rough idle. And also this also can be shown by engine vibration. So in most of the times if you're dealing with some rough idle, definitely there are some sort of level, some degree of engine vibration associated with the rough idle. You just need to pay very good attention to actually notice that. So engine vibration and rough idle is what you're going to be getting when you have a clogged fuel filter online. Number 7, symptoms of a bad or clogged fuel filter is that the car revs just fine at idle. Have you come across such kind of scenario where you wake up in the morning, you start up your car, the car cranks and start up right away? You rev the car very fine, but immediately you step on the gas pedal about to go, the car started stalling and started shutting down. There is every tendency that you could be having a bad pressure regulator, or your engine is being starved of the right fuel. I've actually practiced this a lot of times, trying to create a economy in car by reducing the injector and giving the car the right kind of the different kinds of injector that have more reduced mouth, which is used to orifice to inject the fuel. And surprisingly, the car started up. You want to rev it up, it goes off. So I quickly knew exactly that is what I did, because the injector is not, no matter how the ECM sends you, the injector will not just allow it to pass through because it's too tiny. So that's exactly the same situation that you have when you have a clogged up fuel filter on board. Number 8, symptoms of a bad fuel filter is the car jerks intermittently. There are a host of problems which you're going to be experiencing with a clogged fuel filter. I'm just putting out these top 10s because that is something that is going to be very, very inevitable. And a lot of people, to be honest with you, who have their car and going different destination, engage in different activities every day, do not really know the location of where the fuel filter is. And that is why I actually give you this very orientation at the first instance here, that there is inline. And those inline of this very moment is most often times find underneath the rear right tire, underneath the rear right tire of most European model cars. That's where we're going to be finding this. So if you notice some sort of intermittent jerking when you're stepping on the gas pedal, it could be running too much of air and short of fuel, which is as due to a restriction from a bad or clogged fuel filter or injectors. So you want to check within these two and see where the problem could be stemming from, and you might be able to fix it for free, because sometimes you can rewash this and reuse it. As a matter of fact, I bought this brand new one, and upon putting it in my car, it was jerking seriously. It was jerking even at the first time. So I don't have any option than to wash the old one that is already there and put it back in place, and my car works just fine. So sometimes buying a new one doesn't help, but OEM one does, or aftermarket that meets the OEM specifications or exceeds it, just fix the problem. Number 9, symptoms of a bad fuel filter is your car have hard time starting up. When your car started making some kind of a hard start, there are definitely dozens of factors that can actually cause it, such as no gasoline, poor ignition coil, bad spark plugs, contaminated fuel, and a whole lot of them. And ECM being offline also is actually going to cause it, or PCM being offline is also going to cause it. So here, a bad or clogged fuel filter is going to make your car to hard start or no start at all. If it is too much, seriously restricted, it's not going to actually allow the car to start up. But if it is midly, or let's say on a moderate level, it's just plugged up, but it's still allowing some few quantities of fuel to get passed through it, then it's actually going to start it after a long cranking time, because some of those few quantities are going to keep making their way into the combustion chamber until it reaches up to the amount that is due to actually start up the car, and it starts up the car. The 10 symptoms of a bad or clogged fuel filter is the car starts and stalls. This is a very typical situation of a complete starved fuel due to a clogged fuel filter, or a failed pressure regulator, which is still present inside this guy here. So that is why it can be able to mimic exactly the same two symptoms, and it's actually a property of two different components. So when you have a car that starts in stores and you have not replaced a fuel pump or pressure regulator for quite a long time, then be sure to visit them, because you are going to be very stunned at the kind of surprise you're going to be getting at getting this checked up. Now that you know top 10 reason why, top 10 symptoms of a clogged fuel filter, to give this video a thumbs up.